Bible. Smoke! Alright, today we're going to have an episode continuing with our New Year's Cosmology, class number 6, Propositions of Biblical Cosmology, Part B. I don't know this right. Anyway. Alright, so, continuing from the last series, we just kind of focused a little bit on the Bible getting the globed earth right. But there's 7 principles I have here. The Godhead, the globed earth, the wet earth, the water canopy, geocentricity, primordial light, and the fall of Lucifer. And we're going to try to get through all this massive text together. So be ready for the journey, okay? Alright, I guess number 1 is the Godhead. Now, the Godhead means the substance of God. It is, a lot of people usually think of it theologically, and they would think of the Trinity, okay? The Bible is inclusive, when it uses the word Godhead, of Trinity. But it's really the substance of God, and so it's kind of like this. If I said, we've never seen that in the universe, then you can imply that we've never seen that on earth because the earth is a part of the universe. So the Trinity is part of the Godhead. But when we talk about the biblical language, it's usually not specifically focused on the Trinity. It's specifically focused on the one substance of God. So the 3 persons, but the one being is that substance. You think head of lettuce, head of cheese. Okay? That's kind of where we're getting that. Now, in the Bible, it talks about, let's see if I can find it here real quick. Sorry about that. It talks about God's omnipresence. And I just want to go through this passage real quick. Psalm 135. All right. Do I have it? Or was I wrong? Was all right. Psalm 139. Excuse me. It says in verse 7, "Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me." All right, and so basically, God is the original substance. When we say, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, then what we're saying is, all right, we're starting at the beginning of time. As time begins, we already have the eternal substance of Godhead. God is all-powerful. He's also eternal past, eternal future, and He is omnipresent. He's omniscient. There's a bunch of other omnis, but all these things add up to infinite, okay? God is infinity. So when we talk about the creation of the universe, there is absolutely God, okay? So it's not like there's this empty space called nothing, and then God's just sitting over here saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do with nothing. No, there is no nothing. Nothing is nothing, okay? But there is God infinite, okay? Infinite size, infinite in every proportion. And then God creates, and He makes these limited things. So you have 2 substances that get started off with. Heaven and earth. And obviously, the super duper King James Bible got it right with heaven singular and earth. And then as we go and look down, it'll talk about creating another heaven, which we'll talk about when we talk about this canopy. Okay? But basically that's where we start off with. Okay? we start off with the two substances, heaven and earth. Okay, what does it talk about when it talks about the earth? Well, let's go here. It says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep." Now, that first verse, though, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth," is part of the same body, okay? It's not like, I used to think it was an intro, but it's not. Because how do we know about the earth? Because of what it started off with the first one. So it was, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth," okay? So what do you mean heaven and earth? What's that? It says, well, the earth, okay, and the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now the deep is usually talking about, like, you've heard deep blue sea, deep waters, that kind of stuff, okay? And it says, "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." So there you have that substance, Godhead, represented by the person we call the Holy Spirit. And it says the face of the waters. So earth is not just dirt, but earth, as represented in heaven and earth, is dirt and water. And so we have point number 3, a wet earth. So that disagrees with evolution. Evolution wants it to basically be the puke from a star, okay? That it's just supposed to be regurgitated out and then spins around due to gravity. But actually, it is wet in its nature. It didn't start off as a fireball. And that is a great geological battle between volcanism and Neptunism, okay? So, that is our third point there. Now, the second point we did last episode talking about a globed earth. I do want to hit one point real quick. Let me see if I can grab it as quickly as I can. But it's going to be hard because I'm using a Jewish Old Testament, which they rearranged their canon differently. It's the same books, but it's different arrangement. Alright, in Isaiah 40, verse 22, it says that it is he who is enthroned above the vaults of the earth. Now, our modern translations, and even the King James, like to use, they say, the circle of the earth. And I had to kind of re-look at some of this stuff. Now, a vault is a little different. A vault kind of goes over like that. And if we're talking about circle, then it's really a circle like that. But I thought it'd be like this, and it still could be a circle like this. But basically, we talk about the circle of the earth, when I was dealing with the flat earth theory, that disqualifies them because they say that the earth was a disk. But actually, it was a vault over, okay? It was this vault over the earth, which would be the canopy, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit down. So, going back to the text of Genesis 1. And so it says, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light." Oh, I'll hit that in a second, point 6. But God saw the light that it was good, and divided the light and the dark from the darkness. And God called the light day, and darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Right? And so you have this day-night cycle, evening and then morning. Evening, you see the sun go down. Morning, you see the sun go up. Hold on, there's no sun in Genesis 1 yet, right? We'll talk about that in a minute too. But it says, "And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." So now, we go back to this idea of a wet earth. Now, here's another thing. There is a YouTube popular, it's not very well known, but there is a YouTube cosmology theory called the hollow earth. And they think that the earth is hollow and that there's a race of aliens and another planet where people are kind of existing beneath our earth. That's disqualified from the biblical cosmology because the Bible says the earth is full of water and dirt. So it doesn't have any room for this extra hollow earth. Okay, so hollow earth is not a biblical cosmology. The best you could say is that perhaps the aliens that live down there that come out here in the world, maybe that's the demons coming out of hell. But it's not a peaceful alien race, and there's not some empty thing there. The biblical cosmology is wet earth. So, it says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So, when we're talking about the earth, okay, and the earth is like right here. All right, now we have a firmament, which is right here, where the waters have separated from the waters. Okay? It says, and God made the firmament divide the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. Now, in the Jewish translation, it calls that sky. Okay? Why? Because we're going to make a difference here, and this is a very important difference. There's a difference between the sky and the heaven that was mentioned in Genesis 1:1. Okay? We'll call this the ether heaven. All right? You can put A on there sometimes, just kind of depends on how you're feeling that day. But, yeah, so you have a division of not one now, but two heavens. Now, when people get mixed up in this whole debate over the firmament means expanse. Okay? They'll tell me about rakia. Okay? Oh, rakia just means pounded out in expanse and all this kind of stuff. But what they're not telling you is that the waters. What about the waters? The waters is that part that has become solid. Okay? There's this expanse is this expanse, and that expanse is that expanse. All right? But what about the waters? All right, so you have heaven in the singular in verse 1. And then verse 8 is the second heaven mentioned. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. All right, now, let's see here. So we go out, and I look over here, and as I said, I was using a Jewish translation, but when you go and look at the Canopy, there's a verse here in Job chapter 37, verse 18, and it really doesn't matter what version you use. I've tried most all of them, okay? I've used the loosest translations, who'd obviously want to make things look a little better, and they use similar language. It says, firm as a mirror of cast metal. It says, verse 8, Job 37, verse 18. It says, can you help him stretch out the heavens, firm as a mirror of cast metal? Okay? So there's this stretching and there's this cast metal. Okay? How the waters get to be cast metal, that's going to be a later episode where we talk about science. But man, I'll just say there is a connection when we start talking about an ice canopy that was over the earth. Now, as I said, everything puts it there. The Jews here, they say it's like Genesis 1:6-7, so they know it's obvious. This is the sky is a metal plate hammered thin. It separates the waters from above the water. So basically, what you have here is you have this canopy right here that is hard as metal, okay, with ice, and we have this magnetic metal type of thing going on here, okay. Now, let's see, where are we at now? And that canopy is going to give a lot of explanations. Now, one explanation that the people were off on, that I'm not arguing with people about, is the issue of is the canopy the place of the flood? Like, in other words, were all the waters that were used in the flood, did all that come from this big outer canopy? No. Okay. let me go ahead and I'll just read this passage for y'all. Genesis 8, and it says in verse 2, "The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained." Now, there's another verse that's better for that, but I got a lot to go over today. So basically, the windows, like this ice canopy, okay, that can see out in space, the windows were opened, okay, when the flood happened. You had the fountains of the great deep gush out, okay, from this wet earth. You have the fountains of the great deep gushing out, and then you have this ice canopy, and the windows of heaven are opening, okay? Now, this is ancient windows too, okay? It wasn't just invisible windows. You could obviously see a window of an ancient hut, all right? And that ancient hut, the windows are open, okay? So it's a very important point I want y'all to get fixated on, all right? Now, the next issue is geocentricity. Now, one thing I noticed when I was studying the issue of geocentricity, I mean, don't get me wrong, I went years without figuring this out, okay? I mean, I probably figured it out about a year to 2 years ago. About 2 years ago. Genesis 1, it tells you all these details about creating the earth, but one thing it doesn't tell you about is it never says, the Bible never says that the earth is spinning and it's spinning around the sun. It's just not there. Now, you could argue, and I think you're in a safe place. I don't think there's some big doctrinal issue, okay? But you could argue that this is all figurative language. The Bible never meant to talk about this stuff. And, generally be okay. But if you want the truth, and that's where this issue is, when we look at all this stuff, the big question is, do you want the truth? If you want the truth, then what you're going to find is that there are scriptures that tell us that the earth's not moving. That all these other astral bodies, these celestial bodies, are moving around us. And there is nothing saying that it's otherwise. Okay, so the Bible's implying all this stuff. Let me go over a few passages here. First one is very simple. It's in 1 Chronicles 16:30. And it says this: "Fear before him all the earth, the world also shall be stable, that it shall not be moved." Okay? So one more time. "Fear him all the earth, the world also shall be stable, that it may, be not moved." So there it is, straightforward, just saying that the earth doesn't move. Another one, not as strong a passage, okay, because now we're in a more poetic section here. And it says, let's see here, "The Lord reigneth, he is clothed with majesty, the Lord is clothed with strength, wherefore he had girded himself. The world also is established," okay, the world's propped up, set up, "that it cannot be moved." All right, there it is again, okay. It cannot be moved. And now we got to say it cannot be moved means on the equator 42 miles per second, going 180 million miles around the sun. I believe that's the right statistic. I could be all, you know how numbers are. But, yeah, so, you've got all that momentum, all that stuff, all right. And by the way, the sun is also going around the Milky Way, 250 kilometers per second. So, here we are, back to it. Does that mean establish that it may not be moved? Okay? We don't even really calculate just how much movement we're talking about, all right? But there it is again. Let's see here, Ecclesiastes chapter 1, and it says, verse 5 through 6, "The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually. The wind returns again according to its circuits." The circuit is like a race around place. I mean, it could be not a perfect circle or whatever, but, there it is again. Okay, so not only does the sun move, but the wind moves. Well, everybody agrees that the wind moves, so why wouldn't the sun be moving if it says the sun's moving? All right. Then, let's see here. Job 38, 36. Why I hit that one? Oh, that's the wrong one. All right, we'll do Joshua. Joshua is a very popular for this argument. Joshua 10, verses 12 through 13. He says, Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Avalon. Now, evangelicals typically interpret this as like, well, God made the earth stand still. So God's working through the prophet. And the prophet, instead of saying, earth stand still, what does the prophet do? He says, sun stand still, moon stand still. He didn't say earth stand still. Now, is the sun the same as the earth? Okay, because it seems a little deceptive there. How can he tell the sun to stand still and the earth stops? Not to mention all the crap that can go on with the earth spinning around and suddenly stopping. You would figure there was a lot of shattering, a lot of craziness going on there. They're like, well, it's a miracle. We just got to have faith. Well, no. You have a miracle, the Bible's true. Or you have faith, the Bible's true. But you're making a miracle for heliocentrism. Now, don't worry. I'll bring up a huge scientific argument for all that stuff. But what is the Bible saying? Okay, that's the first thing. If you believe the Bible is the Word of God, what is it really saying? Okay, so here he is, and he's saying that, and you say, well, hold on. Maybe it was the prophet was wrong. Maybe the prophet wasn't prophesying right. Okay, so let's go back to this. It says, so the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. Now, that's not quoting him at that time. That's record. So then that would have to be inerrant. Okay? And remember, does science think that the moon is moving around the earth? Because that's what this assumes. So we got the wind and the moon in accord with science. Okay, in that language. Hey, everything's okay. The moon goes around, the wind goes around. Okay, so we interpret the moon goes around and the wind goes around. Okay, we say, well, the Bible must be saying that then. But science doesn't say that the sun goes around. So here we are once again, and the language just gets strong. And I've got a huge list of all these great theologians who totally agreed exactly with what I'm saying, all the way through until they came up with the heliocentric theory. So then we go and we look at Isaiah 38:8. Now the deal is that Matt, that's just not scientific language. It's the Bible. And the Bible never uses scientific language. Isaiah 38:8. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down. Now, what is that? That's a sundial, okay? That's where you have a little stick, and you see where the shadow is, and as the sun is going around, okay, and you can argue with me about whether it's really going around, but the sun is going around, and the shadow moves around like a clock, okay? And it told you the dial and the degrees, and then went back 10 degrees backwards. What is that? That's scientific language. Okay? Same thing as Joshua's day, only more scientifically accurate. Okay? It's a scientific statement. Okay? So, Then we go and let's see here if I got them all. All right, so I think that's about where it stands there. There's also some verses in Job that talk about the stars also going in a course. Okay, so you get the stars moving. Oh yeah, I forgot the big one. Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech, nor language, where their works is not heard. Their line is gone through all the earth, and their words in the heaven and the world. In them he hath set the tabernacle of the sun. Okay? So now we have the universe, which is holding that sun. And it says, which is as a bridegroom coming out of the chamber, rejoiceth as a strong man in the race. Biblical language, figurative language says bridegroom. Bridegroom would be we are the bride of Christ, and he is the bridegroom. Okay? He's coming for us. He's saving us. He lived, daylight. He died, sun goes down. He rose again, sun goes back up. Now, is Jesus working for our salvation? Now, as a Bible believer that would qualify as Baptist, yeah, Protestant, most strongly New Testament Christian, yes, Jesus is the one saving us. He is the bridegroom. He is coming for us. The sun is the symbol. The sun is doing it around us. It's it right there. And it says, in his circuit unto the ends of it. What's the end of it? That's the day and night line. Okay, that's the ends of the earth. Okay, it goes in a circle. And when you hit the end of the sunlight, then you hit the moonlight at nighttime. Okay, that's the ends of the earth. Okay, and it's always moving around. All right, but it's a circuit. That's circular. Okay, so there it is again. The universe is going around us. All right. Let me say something about the light. As we talked again about Genesis 1, it talked about light, and it separated the day and the night, right? What's up with that? Because the sun was created on day 4. Now, I've got, in my scientific theory, I'm going to talk about a cosmology called the electric universe, and I adapted it to a biblical cosmology, okay? And obviously, I'm not talking as much science today as just getting this stuff with the Bible down. But I'd also like to point this out in Job, chapter 25, verse 5. How much less man, behold, even to the moon, and it shineth not, yea, the stars are not pure in his sight. The light of God is infinite. And there is a scientific case for that will be made. But the light of God is infinite. Okay? But the light of the world that we see with the stars is not so. It doesn't carry that glory in the scriptures. Why does that matter? Because we don't need the sun and the stars to give us the original light. The original light was here, then the sun and the stars were made after. A lot of nice people who are good Bible-believing creationists have twisted Genesis to act as if, well, maybe they didn't see that the light was coming from the stars. No. Yeah, we don't owe our existence to the stars. So, I'm sorry that Neil deGrasse Tyson is wrong. We're not stardust. Okay? Now, let's see here. There's also an issue of a galactic catastrophe that started things off. And I'll hit that one really quick. This is in Job chapter 9. All right. I'll just read through the passage and then just comment on it. Okay. He says, talks about God's strength, which removeth the mountains, and they know not, which overturn them in anger. This is why I know that, Job was right after the flood. So we start to see a lot of the effects of the flood in their thinking. And he says, which removeth the mountains, and they know not, which overturn them in his anger, which shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble. Okay. And it says, which commandeth the sun, and it riseth not, and sealeth up the stars. What's going on there? Well, we have a universe, okay? I believe that universe is going around us, but basically something happened, and it messed up the earth, and it messed up the universe, okay? And that's why all of a sudden we don't see the sun, we don't see the stars. What's going on here? All right. He says, which alone spreadeth out the heavens, and treads upon the waves of the sea, which maketh Arcturus, and Orion, and Pleiades. These are constellations, and the chambers of the south, which doth great things past finding out, yea, wonders without number. So basically, what's going on is that I believe that the flood is something that we ought to look at as not just the flood happening on Earth, but other things in space had to go on in order for such a giant catastrophe to happen to a full planet. Okay, so that's something we'll be looking into. Now, the next one, the fall of Lucifer, is the last biblical point I want to make. It is, this is a mysterious category. I'm not saying that this is just right there and easy to understand, okay? I'm saying that if you look at the whole Bible and start picking these pieces together, this is the case that can be made. And so this is the case that I'm going to make as far as like this catastrophe, which started off, and basically the fall of Lucifer, which ended up starting a sequence which would start the flood, okay? I don't want to bring up too much of the science. I want to get the issue out there. So Luke 10, 15, and 18. Let's see if I can find that. It says, it was talking about the fall of Lucifer a little bit. And it says, now Capernaum, which art exalted to heaven, shall be brought down to hell. And you think about Isaiah, where he talks about Lucifer would be brought down to hell. And then we skip down to verse 18, and he said, this is Jesus, said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Okay? So you see that, the lightning there, okay? Ezekiel 28:17. And it says, in Ezekiel 28:17, thine heart, talking to Satan, was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom, by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before the kings, that they may behold thee. So there he is again. Satan is cast down. All right. By the way, it says that God's throne, we went over this last episode, is above the north. Okay. And his throne is above the north, and of course, the cherubim, which was Lucifer was one, would cover the throne. So this all happened up north. Isaiah 14, verse 12. And it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Job chapter 26, verse 13. It says, by his spirit he hath garnished the heavens, his hand hath formed the crooked serpent. Now the crooked serpent is a constellation up here called Draco, okay? And a lot of these constellations were symbols of the gospel for people before the Bible was put to print. It says, here, Isaiah 27, verse 1. It says, in that day the Lord with his sore and great strong sword shall punish Leviathan in the piercing of the serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Leviathan is called the crooked serpent, okay, and we know the serpent is Satan. Well, we'll find out. But basically, the serpent is Satan, and the crooked serpent was that constellation there too. Revelation 12, verse 7. And he says, and there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought his angels. Let's see here. Verse 9, 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast in the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So there you see that connection, okay? Satan, devil, crooked serpent, it's all the same. So my thing is that I believe that when that happened, as a sign from the heavens, there was judgment upon Lucifer in the Garden of Eden. And that worked its way out until it reached the earth at the time of the flood. And we use an idea called a gamma ray burster and all that kind of stuff. But once again, that's the scientific aspects of the point. So this is me showing that the Bible, that I have biblical grounds to work out this cosmology theory. Okay? So I hope y'all have a good time and see you on the next New Year's cosmology class.